So there is this definite common thread of creativity and struggle with physical stuff in your home, right? Not that all creative people struggle with clutter, but the vast majority of people who struggle with clutter are highly creative, right? And this acceptance of, oh, this is how my brain works actually gave me the freedom to figure out what worked for me and my unique brain instead of keeping on trying to do the things that everybody said should work that weren't working
Mhm.
for me.
You're listening to the Good Dirt Podcast. This is a place where we dig into the nitty-gritty of sustainable living through food, fashion, and lifestyle.
And we're your hosts, Mary and Emma Kingsley, the mother and daughter founder team of Lady Farmer. We're sowing seeds of slow living through our community platform, events, and online marketplace.
We started this podcast as a means to share the wealth of information and quality conversations that we're having in our world as we dream up and deliver ways for each of us to live into the new paradigm, one that is regenerative, balanced, and whole.
We want to put the microphone in front of the voices that need to be heard the most right now: the farmers, the dreamers, the designers, and the doers.
So come cultivate a better world with us. We're so glad you're here. Now, let's dig in.
Hello, Mom. I'm so excited about today's episode.
It was great.
Yeah, I have to admit, it was not what I was expecting, because this subject matter of decluttering and organizing is something that we have discussed on here before and something that you and I discuss a lot
Yeah.
off the podcast.
Yes.
So I just sort of thought I'd heard it all. I don't know. Even though I will always talk about it because it's something that I constantly need guidance and inspiration in. I'm not naturally organized, but yeah, I operate much better when my surroundings are organized. And we've made the argument a lot that your space has a big effect on your ability to be present and live in the moment, which is, slow living. So anyways, this episode was really fun for me, and I honestly have thought about it every single day since then as I go around and do my life in my space.
Yes, it challenged my own assumptions and process
Mhm.
for my own personal decluttering,
Mhm.
which I consider to be an ongoing thing.
Mhm.
But after our conversation with Dana today, I felt inspired with several new angles on it. And to your point, you can think, a topic, and then all of a sudden you get fresh insights and ideas. It was great. That's why I love this podcast so much, because you never know when, something's going to be really new and useful and help a lot. So, and you and I, this is something we do together. We take on areas, especially recently in your house, because being a new mom,
Yeah,
organization becomes increasingly
necessary.
challenging.
Yeah.
Challenging and necessary, when things aren't in place. You do
It just yeah.
things don't function as well. Yeah, we have even together employed some of these processes. So some of these techniques that Dana tells us about today. So if you're a frequent listener here on the Good Dirt podcast, you know that decluttering is a topic that comes up a lot, not only because it's something we both struggle with, but also because it's something that many, many people struggle with, I think, because of the clutter problem. The issue of having too much stuff is really just a fact of life in our culture.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Because our economy is fueled by our continually buying stuff. It's just how it has been set up, whether we need it or not. It's kind of actually more of a survival skill to be able to not only consume carefully and consciously, to keep stuff from getting out of control, but also to manage what you do have in a way that allows us to live in the way we really want to live. It's really crazy how much work it is when you just created all of this work for ourselves.
I mean, do any of us really want to spend all of our days taking care of objects? I think about that a lot. Moving things around, is this
Yeah.
what we want to be doing? Moving objects or trying to place objects, finding the home for
Yeah.
this object. No, I want to spend my days doing all the things that make life good, spending time with people and being in nature and having fun and creating a life is rich and full of joy, not stuff. So,
Yeah, goals. So today we're talking to Dana White. Dana is the creator of the No Mess Decluttering Process, and she is the author of Decluttering at the Speed of Life, which is a Wall Street Journal bestseller. She's also a speaker, podcaster, YouTuber, and much to her own surprise, a decluttering expert. She also trains and certifies decluttering coaches in her unique process at declutteringcoaches.com. She's got loads of great tips and insights in this episode. The best and my favorite being her 5-step decluttering method, which is an instant game changer.
Dana has a podcast with over 16 million downloads. She's got a blog, books, courses, and tons of videos to help you have a neat and functional home. Check out all of her great content, but first, take a listen to this wonderful episode.
So, I am Dana K. White. I am an author. I write about decluttering. I teach decluttering. That is my full-time job. It is literally the last thing I ever thought that I would be writing about because it is not natural to me, to say the least. I was born messy. I had a messy apartment. I had a messy, room as a child. I was the kid in high school who you open up the locker and everything just fell out. It was always my struggle. I assumed that once I became a stay-at-home mom, it would go away and I would suddenly be organized. And that didn't happen. I know now that even people who used to be organized tend to struggle once they have kids. This was my big struggle. And it was the thing that drove me bananas about myself. But I wanted to be a writer. And so I found out what blogs were back in the day, 2008, 2009, and was like, I've got to do that. This is the thing. But my house was a disaster. I thought it was going to be a temporary practice blog that I was going to write to stay focused on my home, and I would have everything perfect in like 2, 3, 4 months maybe. And then I would start writing about things I was actually qualified to write about. And I am still writing about this because it's turned out that really the main thing is that I realized I was not alone, right? Like I thought I was the only person who struggled the way that I did. And I learned that there were others. I did not teach anything for a long time. People would say, teach us what you're doing. And I would say, why would you want to learn this from me? That doesn't make any sense. But about 2.5 years in, I realized, okay, I can't teach you how to have a perfect house, but I can teach you how to go from overwhelmed and confused by what in the world is going on here. Why is this so hard to, oh, okay, I can do this.
That's so inspiring.
Yes, and I noticed that your website is called A Slob Comes Clean. I wonder if you would, since you call yourself a slob,
Mhm.
and I feel like you're allowed to define that. What does
Absolutely.
a slob mean to you then? And what does
So,
it mean now if it's
well,
changed?
yeah, I mean, I'll just be clear. When I started this blog, it was anonymous.
Oh,
I did not even tell my husband what I was doing at first. I didn't tell anybody I knew. I made up a fake name. This was my embarrassing secret,
oh.
right? This was
Like
the
on the
thing that,
internet, like
yeah, I mean, I called myself
slob girl.
Noni, short for
Okay.
anonymous, because I didn't intend for anyone to ever trace this back to me. And I did not want to use the word slob. I don't like that word. I had often said, it's not like I'm a slob. I worked really hard on my house. It was never an issue of not caring, me sitting around doing nothing. And that was why I was so confused by it. I was working on my house all the time and I felt like I was doing the things that other people were doing and it wasn't working. When this idea came to me, this compromise of I'm going to write about this and figure out my house and get to learn about blogging, at the same time, that title of my blog came to me and I was like, well, it's kind of catchy.
It is cute.
But I didn't want to use that word, but I was so desperate to get started. Even though I wanted to be a writer, I couldn't think of another word.
Mhm.
I now know why that word was so important for me to use. I was anonymous and I had used the word slob. I had no reason to pretend anything at that point. I had already used the worst word. And I never try to sometimes people are like, "Oh, so we're all slobs." I don't want anybody to call themselves that because it's not a nice word. So
Yeah.
I don't ever tell people to identify that as that, but I know for myself, I needed to stop trying to put a rosy spin on it, stop trying to make excuses. I needed to just get down to what was really going on, and it set me on that path. Because I was completely honest, because it was anonymous, I found my people. I was sharing exactly what was going through my head, exactly my confusion over, like, why am I resisting doing this thing? Or why is it that I did this thing and it didn't have any effect? People started saying, those are my thoughts. Those are my struggles. And I learned I wasn't alone. I don't know if y'all remember the internet back then, but when people would comment on your blog, you could click on their name and read their bio
Mm.
and learn something about them.
Yeah.
And what I saw was that the people who were relating to what I was saying were highly creative, driven, intelligent women. Okay,
Mhm.
so there is this definite common thread of creativity and struggle with physical stuff in your home, right? Not that all creative people struggle with clutter, but the vast majority of people who struggle with clutter are highly creative, right? And so
Mm.
it helped me accept, okay, I like being creative. Understanding that part of my brain is directly related to my struggles with clutter helped me accept that this is how my brain works. Not to say, oh, well, then I'm just going to leave my house a mess, but instead to not feel like a failure because traditional organizing advice didn't work for me, right? Like I was always lost on page 3. I was like, what are y'all talking about? Because the dirty little secret about most organizing advice is that it's written by organized people, right? So
Ah,
Yeah.
their
good
brains
point.
work very differently from my brain. And this acceptance of, oh, this is how my brain works actually gave me the freedom to figure out what worked for me and my unique brain instead of keeping on trying to do the things that everybody said should work that weren't working
Mm.
for me.
Oh, wow. That's so fascinating. So, can you come up with an example of
Mhm,
the thing that's supposed to work
mhm.
that just did not apply to you?
The biggest thing is that most people will advise that when you declutter, you should start by pulling everything out of a space.
Mm.
That's what a lot of experts will tell you. Step 1, pull everything out and just put back the things that you want. Well, the problem is I would pull everything out and I would look at the empty space and go, that looks so great. Empty with nothing in it. And then I would turn around and all that stuff I had just taken out was now spread out all
Mhm.
over my countertops and my floor and my hallway, and I would just instantly be overwhelmed and shut down. With
Same.
some I was always gonna get distracted, right? And
Yeah.
so I used to think, "Okay, if they say to pull everything out, then the answer for me is I've got to be a different person than I am."
Yeah, you just
Right?
gotta
Like
focus.
this
It's your fault you can't deal.
right. This time I am going to push through all the way, and then it wouldn't happen, and again, I would be discouraged and not wanna start again the next time. I have what I call the no mess decluttering process, which is I never create a bigger mess in the process of decluttering. I
Oh.
go one
What?
item at a time, final decision by final decision, and I act on that final decision. Now, that's a very short version of what is a actual 5-step process. We start with the trash and get that out. Then we go with stuff I already know what to do with, the easy stuff, and then I get out obvious donations, and then I have decluttering questions that I ask that give me a home for something because that was a big part of my problem was my stuff didn't have homes. And then I take, so I go through the process, but I'm making only progress. That's it.
Ah.
Which means I don't have to estimate an amount of time that this project is going to take me. Whatever time I have, I can work on it because it's only going to be better. It's never going to end up in this halfway chaotic
Mm.
point, right? It's only going to get better. And that means that I'm willing to start because I know I can stop at any time. Whether I stop because I want to or I stop because life happens, it doesn't matter. I'm only going to make it better. And that was transformational. That's when I actually started to make real progress in my home when I started decluttering that way. Yeah.
That's okay. So you're telling me that I don't have the excuse anymore to say, I'll wait till I have a chunk of 5 hours. I
Yep.
can do that.
Yes.
That's how
Because
I
that's the
do.
thing, right? Is every
Yeah.
time I would estimate this time and then it would never work out. And
Mhm.
so then I was like, well, I must not have had enough time last time. So next time I do this, 5 hours wasn't enough last time.
Mhm.
So I need to wait till I have a whole weekend
Just a week.
break at
Yeah.
Christmas. I'm going to wait until the kids start college. It's this mindset of like, it didn't work last time. So next time I got to estimate more time. But when I don't have to estimate time because
Mm.
I can just work for any amount of time, then that's when my house started to change. Right.
That's so
Wow,
cool.
this is revolutionary.
Yeah.
Yeah, because everything you just said is what my mom tells me.
Yeah, that's my technique.
But
I
mom,
pull everything out.
honestly, I think you've gotten like you're someone who's like really made yourself do that. I think we're very similar and like so she has to come help me. But I imagine that you weren't always as good as it as you are and I think you've had to work really really hard to like force yourself to do that.
Yeah, but to Dana's point, I'll empty a space, and my big technique is to get a table, like a folding table, and put everything on it. So
Mhm.
everything that needs to be gone through is concentrated right there. I've learned that much. You spread it all over and you just want to
Yeah.
go to bed and
Well, and
go under the covers. But my problem is that it can stay like that for literally
yeah.
weeks. And that's
Yeah.
not good. Yeah.
No, I mean, here's the thing. I always say if what you're doing works for you, that's what you should keep doing.
Well,
But if
yeah.
it doesn't and you end up
Works.
frustrated, this
Yeah.
5-step process is guaranteed to work, and I don't say that lightly. You're not depending on inspiration, you're not depending on being hyped up. If you follow the process, the only thing you're gonna make is progress. If you work on a space for 30 minutes, you may not be done, but you
Mhm.
will have successfully decluttered, right?
Made progress.
Yes,
Made
you're not
progress.
finished decluttering, but you have decluttered. And I think having that mindset shift. Another thing too is I make my goal better. Instead of I'm going to get this space finished, because as long as I had that as my goal, it was really hard to start. It was
Mm.
so overwhelming and I had so much clutter. But when I say I'm going to make this space better, there's no way to fail if I do even one thing. This process works. It's always mind boggling to me that I hear from people who are like, I'm not like you, but I follow this process because it works. It absolutely works.
I feel like this
More naturally
conversation's
organized than me,
pretty
following.
transformational for me personally.
Yeah.
I mean, I love talking about decluttering, and
Yeah.
we've had a few people on this show to talk about similar things, but I've never heard it this way. I'm like, oh, this is me.
Yeah.
Before we get too far away from it, though,
Mhm.
I do want to circle back to the beginning when you were talking about slob and being anonymous.
Mhm.
I think that's really cool because with something like clutter and being clean, there's a lot of emotion associated with it, and like it's
Mhm.
shameful and
Yep.
like you were saying like the word slob like it's not a nice word and there's just shame associated with it. And I think there's something really powerful about saying the shameful thing out loud
Mhm.
and uncovering the yucky stuff, like literally the skeleton in your closet when it
Mhm.
comes to decluttering, like literally opening the closet.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Absolutely. There's a lot of shame around this issue. There's a lot of fear of feeling like a failure. I experience this a lot when I'm working with people is, you know, if I give up all of this quilting stuff, right? Like I collected a bunch of quilting stuff, or my grandmother, I got it from her at some point in my life, and I was going to do this thing. And yet, if I declutter, that means I'm going to have to face the fact that I've never actually done this thing and I'm not going to be the person that I thought I was going to be, and all these emotions. And so, my process I feel all those emotions, right? And a lot of times people will want to use those emotions to declutter. Well, if you're going to use emotions to declutter, I'm going to keep it all. So I don't do any kind of rationalization. I took the emotions out of the process. So we start with trash, which is actual trash, not stuff that you're finally admitting is trash, but like, wait, is there any trash here? Yeah, I've got a water bottle cap right here. Because I start with something completely non emotional, it lets me get going, it lets me get started and moving. And I'm starting to see what I'm dealing with. Easy stuff is literally stuff I already know what to do with. It's shocking the amount of stuff that will leave a space when you let yourself just look for trash easy stuff, and obvious donations first, right? Those are things that are legitimately, by definition, decision-free things, and you make progress. And so then by the time you get to the stuff that is harder, you've already built some momentum and you've gained some confidence and you've seen a difference in this space, which inspires you to keep going. And even when it comes to the actual item itself that is hard, I still don't use emotions, right? Like my questions are, if I needed this item, okay, I keep picking up this thing. If I needed this tripod phone holder, right? If I needed this, where would I look for it first? There's no like, should I have this? Will I ever use it? How do I feel about it? We're not going to ask that question. Literally, if I needed it, where would I look for it first? I don't know where it should be because if I did, it left in step 2, which was easy stuff, the stuff I already knew what to do with, right? This is literally, I don't know. If I pictured myself tearing my house apart for 3 hours searching for this item because I just know I have it, what's the first drawer that I would open to look for it? The first cabinet I would open. And then that is its home. And then I take it there right now. It feels very inefficient, but it's actually the definition of efficiency because you go ahead and close the loop and do the thing. So I take it to the space where I would look for it first. And then I see, is there any room for it here? Is there space? Because if there's not space, then I need to make the space by getting rid of something else that's less important to me than this item. Sometimes I get there and I realize, oh, I've got 7 of these already, right? But as long as I was just kind of hypothetically going, oh, I would look in that cabinet over the washing machine. I don't know what that cabinet looks like until I go there and I face the reality of it. And then I'm giving it space or I'm deciding, you know what? Actually, the stuff that's already in there is more important to me than this. And so there is no saying, Dana, you're never going to use that. I'm just not going to do that because I will argue with myself all the ways that I could and would and might use it.
And
So
like,
I take all that out and we just go with what's the space? Where would I look for it? If I wouldn't go looking for it, then I need to let it go because the reality is if I wouldn't go looking for it, I would buy another one. And that's the opposite of what I'm trying to do here.
yeah.
Yeah.
Are you allowed to look for a secondary place if you're like, never mind, not room there?
Yeah. I mean, it's
Okay.
your house, right? But it has to be given an actual home, right? And the best
Okay.
place for it to go
Is
is
the
the first
first.
place where you would look for it because isn't that the goal of organizing, right?
Yes, to
Is
know where things
is like to be able
Yeah.
to find things. And it's
Yeah.
hard when you don't trust yourself when you're like, I don't think I have good instincts. But the more you practice and the more you experience that, oh, I need that thing and oh my word, it's in the first place where I look, that
Mhm.
gives you that confidence to keep going.
Dana, all right, 2
Mhm.
questions. One, the easy is once you're looking at you're face to face with something, it's like, "Oh, this goes there." That's the easy thing.
The easy thing is it already has an established home.
Oh,
Like, it's not something I'm because
you
things
have
just get out of place, right? And, like,
Yeah.
when
yeah.
there's a pile, other things end up on that pile too. So I'm gonna go ahead and get out the things that I do already know what to do with, just to give some clarity to what's left, and then I have less stuff to overwhelm me at the point when I am actually making decisions, but they're
Decision.
really instinct-based decisions.
So, the other thing I wanted to ask was to go back a little bit
Okay.
and tell us, if you can,
Mhm.
was there an aha moment or a moment that was really a pivot for you, a real moment of illumination that sort of turned you in this direction?
So I had a video that I did. It was probably my 3rd year of blogging. I did YouTube videos every week for a year.
Yeah.
In my brain it
Yeah.
is. Anyway, but I did YouTube videos every week, and I remember I did one and I was like, "I don't feel like doing this." Like, I just feel like, ugh, but I was like, I'm committed, I'm making this video, and so I went and I worked on this space, and I was like, "I'm just gonna declutter. That's all I'm gonna do. I'm not even gonna worry about getting organized right now. I'm just gonna declutter." And I just decluttered and I went, "Wait, what?" Like, it changed the space,
Mm.
and I
Oh.
realized, okay, organizing and decluttering are not the same thing,
Oh.
and just decluttering is actually the thing I needed to do all along. Organizing is problem solving. Problem solving is overwhelming, especially for the person whose house is continually getting out of control. Because I feel like I'm terrible at this. So I must
Mhm.
need to come up with a whole new system the next time I try. So then it just makes me put it off and put it off and put it off. But when I said I'm just going to declutter,
Mm.
there's nothing to do first. It is literally just getting the stuff out. Now I have a process for doing it. Just getting stuff out made this space organized. The fact that all the excess things were gone and I only had what actually fit in this space meant that I could see what I had, I could access it, I could put it back. That realization that decluttering and organizing are not the same thing and that just decluttering is actually the solution to my problem was transformational for me.
Yeah, I can see that. Like when organizing is gets to the point where it's just moving things around.
Right. Well,
And
even
yeah.
if you want the color coded pantry, you still have to declutter first. Even if you want the fancy system, you need to declutter before you get anything for that system. Because
Mhm.
I always tell I'm like, I know you think you want the really cool, especially like in a craft room or whatever, you want the cool system, but you have no concept of what system you actually need until you get the things out that have no business being there. Because you don't want
Mhm.
to be buying a system for trash, right?
Mhm. Also, something that it's taken me a long time to realize is that you can't just adopt anyone's system. There's only one system that's going to work for you. It's your brain. And there's as many different systems as there are brains. So
Yeah.
you really have to do it for your brain.
I don't organize. I just declutter. That's it.
Mhm.
I would rather have 3 things on a shelf than 17 things in a complicated system because I am never going to maintain the system and I don't want to maintain the system. I
Mm.
would rather just stick the thing on the shelf because there's plenty of space on the shelf. One of the things that I realized, I call it your clutter threshold. We all have a clutter threshold. It is not about your preference. It's nothing aesthetic, right? Because it's not, oh, her house has more stuff than I like. That's not what I'm talking about, right? I mean, how much stuff can I handle? What is easy for me to keep under control? My mother, if there's ever a event, global event that happens, go to her house and she will have everything you could ever need for any situation and it's all kept under control, right? Like she can handle that. So I was brought up to have that same mentality. That's what I prefer. I love to be prepared. But I can't handle it. And so I would bring all this stuff in and it would backfire because I didn't know where it was. I couldn't find it. It was keeping me from being able to live comfortably in my home. And so I had to accept I can't handle that much stuff. It is better for me to have less stuff and be able to access it and keep it under control than for me to try to keep the reason my house was out of control was I had more stuff than I could handle. The only way to find your clutter threshold is to declutter until you go, wait a minute, I can do this. Like this I can handle. And it's different for every single person. There's no way to predict what your clutter threshold is. If your house feels out of control for you, then you're over your clutter
Then you
threshold.
have too much stuff.
Yeah.
I'm curious if in decluttering and over all of these years of
Mhm.
figuring this out, has it affected the way that you accumulate stuff? Are you
Absolutely.
less likely to bring stuff into your house? Have you noticed your thought process and your decision making around bringing things in?
Absolutely. So it was probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 years in or something. And I had taken my mother in law to the doctor and they were like, here's her next appointment's piece of paper. And I had to stop myself, but the thought and the words that wanted to come out of my mouth were, "I'm allergic to paper," which is not true, right? But it's the same thing. I see stuff as the future clutter that it will be. It's because I have decluttered, gone through the pain of getting rid of things and feeling frustrated with myself and realizing that this item expired or was ruined at the bottom of a pile. Like I've been through that. Therefore, when I see other stuff, especially at thrift stores and stuff, which used to be my kryptonite, like I loved anything that was a great deal. And so I now look at it and go, "Ah, I've decluttered stuff that was either exactly like that or really similar, so I can see the future of how that item would end up in my home. I just went to a fundraiser auction on Saturday and found out that my husband had put little raffle things in a bunch of different things. And then we left early and he was like, "What about those things?" I was like, "Honey, I don't want any of it." I was just
Mhm.
like, "I'm fine with donating the money, but I don't want to bring anything home." That is not who I used to be. I used to love to bring the stuff home.
Well, I think collectively we have this mentality. We love a deal and we
Mhm.
love gifts and we love free stuff.
Yes,
Oh my
Hold
gosh,
this.
like those giveaway stress balls and
yes.
pens at
Yeah,
the
you
Ooh,
go to
that's
Because it's
fun.
free.
you go to conferences and whatever
Yeah.
at the dentist, you go through your whole thing and then they walk in with this little bag of stuff, your toothbrush and useful things. I got to where I was turning it down because those things stress
Mhm.
me, particularly the plastic bag. I look at a plastic bag and I don't know what to do with it because I don't want to throw it away.
Exactly.
Trying to think of another use for it. It's just stress. And so I
Yes.
don't want it. So, no,
Yes.
thank you. I appreciate it, but you can keep your plastic things.
Yes.
And they're like, wow, but it's not a normal reaction. I mean, people like free stuff. That's the
Mhm.
whole industry around favors.
But it's a good reaction, right? You
Yeah.
know what you can handle. And the
Yeah.
Mhm.
sustainability issue is a major issue for a lot of people with major clutter. I don't want to do the wrong thing with this. Most people who struggle
Yeah.
with clutter are idealists. And I'm
Yeah.
like, my advice is do the less than perfect thing so that you get your house to the point where you have the bandwidth to do the ideal thing.
Go ahead
Like
and put it in the
throw it
landfill.
away.
Right? I mean, because
Yeah.
it's either in your
Yeah.
house as trash or it's
Yeah.
there. And so it's not perfect. And if your house is completely out of control, then it's overwhelming to you. And you may have this ideal that I want to only use reusable water bottles, right? But if your kitchen counters are piled with stuff, and you don't even have room in your cabinets for things, it makes doing the dishes feel very overwhelming, right? And so then that's the reason why you end up just having to do the less than ideal thing because you're so
Mhm.
overwhelmed. If you get rid of the stuff and do the less than ideal thing, then you'll be under your clutter threshold and you can do the things that are important to you. You can do the sustainable practices that you want to do. It also, like you said, a perfect example of you saying no thank you on the things that you don't want to have to deal with. But
Yeah.
when there's already like rooms full and piles full, it's like what's one more, and it doesn't cross your
Mhm.
mind that this is just
Yeah.
one more thing that's going to pile onto the.
Right. I think it comes with really paying attention to the objects in your surroundings and the daily decisions
Mhm.
where things go, where to place them so you can do your thing, so you can fix your food, so that you
Yes,
can
yes.
do the things you need to do to live every day. It's just not only is it physical space, but it's metaphorical space to to have either less items around you or the items that you know what to do with it and know where they go so that you can literally live.
Yeah. I didn't know how much my excess of stuff was making it harder to do all the everyday things, right?
Yeah.
I knew that things felt harder than they should be. I didn't
Mhm.
understand that a lot of that just had to do with the fact that it was hard to do the dishes because there were always so many because I could go for so long because I had so many. Like
Mhm.
I mean, like this, it all works together to make it harder than it
Mhm.
needs to be. Yeah.
So do you feel like now you're at a point where you have some sort of equilibrium that's reached and you can kind of stay there, or does it continue to be a process? What is that like? That plate.
I would say the equilibrium is your clutter threshold. It took me
Okay.
probably 2.5 years or so. It's been like 16 years now, right?
Wow.
But I still always declutter because I have the personality where I get zeroed in on a task,
Mhm.
like launching a book or writing a book. I go, oh my goodness, how did this happen again? It's never like it was because I got rid of so much of my stuff that
Mhm.
even when things are out of place, it's just things being out of place because they have an
Mhm.
actual place to go to now. It's not just piles of things. So, yeah, the thing I thought my goal in wanting to get my house under control was to have a beautiful magazine worthy, Pinterest worthy home, right? Like that's what I just assumed because I'm like, I like that. I don't like this. That's what I'm going toward. In reality, My real goal that I realized as I was making progress, the minute you start decluttering, you're going to see a difference. It's worth it even in the very beginning. The thing I realized was I just don't want to be held back by my house.
Mm.
Like I want to be able to write books and make videos and do podcasts and have a business and like that's fun to me. I don't want my house to be this burden like it used to be. So that is my place where I've landed. I think it's great to have nice things on the wall and all that kind of stuff, but my focus is more, let me just keep it functional.
Yeah.
That's what I want is a house that doesn't turn back into a disaster because there's so much stuff that didn't have a place to go.
So, do you feel like every day you're not spending time moving things around?
No, the 5-minute pickup
Oh,
is, I knew that people whose homes were under control did a daily pickup, right? And I would try to do that, but my house was such a disaster and things didn't have a place to go that a pickup was basically like an overhaul. So I just decided I'm going to start doing a daily pickup, and 5 minutes was the lowest amount of time I could justify. And I could not believe the impact of 5 focused minutes of picking up and putting away. Now, the 5-minute pickup is a great way to start. It's also the way to maintain any progress that you make, right? So, my way that I know that I am under my clutter threshold is that it takes 5 minutes or less with whoever's living in my house at the time. My kids are in college now, but with whoever's in the house, picking up for 5 minutes and putting away on a normal day, does that get it back to where it should be? And if it does, then we're under our clutter threshold. If it doesn't, then I know that we're over our clutter threshold.
So do you like, is it the same time every day? Do you set a timer? Is that
No,
like,
I do set the timer for sure. I do not do the same time every day because my personality is that I would say, okay, we need to do a 5-minute pickup every night before bed. And
mm,
then the kids would already be in bed, and I would be like, I
yeah,
forgot again.
yeah.
Tomorrow night, I'm going to do this.
I'm
And
the
then the
same
next
way.
night, the kids would be in bed, and I would be like, or I wouldn't think about it till the next day at 10 o'clock in the morning. And I was just like, I've got to do that tonight. So I don't advise that you set a time. I say, in the moment when you think of it, do it. And then it's done.
you realize that for whatever reason you've gotten beyond your clutter threshold.
Mhm.
What do? Get a box, put it in the middle of the room, and start dunking stuff in it?
Go through the process. Start with the trash. Go to your most visible space.
Mm-hmm.
And that's always where I say to start. Like, don't start in an obscure spot where you're never going to see the progress that you've made. They appreciate the work that you've done. Go to that space and start with the trash. Like, I literally will take whatever trash bag or thing that could be a trash bag, recycling bin. If you already have a recycling routine, take that with you and just start doing that first. Then ask yourself what's easy. I use my decluttering process, the first 3 steps, for any, like, I'll do that on a 5-minute pickup because I'm the type who I'm like, what? And I'm like, trash, start with the trash. All right, start with the easy stuff
Track easy. What's the
and
third?
obvious donations. So yeah, you just do that. And then if there's anything that you come across that you don't know what to do with it, then you ask yourself, if I needed this item, where would I look for it first? And take it there right now.
You mentioned your mom, that she's
Mhm.
got all the objects, everything.
Mhm.
So did my mom and dad,
Mhm.
and they both passed away over the past year.
I'm
They
sorry.
lived long and wonderful lives. Their house
Mhm.
had all those things in it.
Yes.
I have 2 siblings, I have 2 brothers. We all went in and did our part, and guess what? I've still got a lot of that stuff, a whole bunch of it.
Yep.
It's been a year, and I'm like, how many times a day or a week do I say to myself, "I gotta get up there." It's in my barn. It's in the 2nd floor of my barn, and I gotta get that cleared out. I want my barn back. I want
Yes.
So, I guess this brings me to the question, stuff you inherit, sentimental memories, stuff from your own life, your own past, your parents. I mean, they're just loaded. They're clothes. Any
Mhm.
advice?
Yep.
Go.
Here's the thing. You said, I need to get up there and clear that out.
Yes.
Change your goal
Okay.
to, I need to get up there and make it a little bit better.
Okay.
Because the other thing that happens with the emotional stuff is it can be the emotions that shut you down. right?
Mhm.
So give yourself permission to say, I'm going to go up there and see if there's any trash. Surely there's no trash, right? Like, why would I have brought trash to the house? But when you go look at it, just ask yourself, because even if there's no trash, what's happening in your brain is that you're now seeing individual items. It's no longer the stuff. It's, oh, okay, it's the this and the that and the this and the that, right? It's no longer the unknown to your brain. Even if you go up there and you're like, I'm going to look for trash, there's no trash, I'm done. Something happens in your brain after you've gone back to the house and you've not thought about it for 2 days. You go back to it, it's no longer unknown and you're able to make progress. Then go through the process. Say, is there anything in here that I already know what I want to do with? Okay.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
ask yourself that question. Is there anything in here that's an obvious donation? It's possible at that point that because you've been going through this process and you've made progress and you're
Mhm.
giving yourself permission to just do better, to make it better, that you go, you know what, actually, I think I can donate most of their clothes, at
Mhm.
this point. But it's not this going in and I'm going to rip the band aid off. That's just not effective.
Yeah.
And then you go through the same process that you go through with anything, even the sentimental stuff. Like, it doesn't
Mhm.
get a different process because it's sentimental. Instead, I say, if I needed the shoes that my mother wore at her wedding, where would I look first for the shoes that my mother wore at her wedding? And if you
Wow.
have a place and you're like, you know what, I would look in my own closet for those, then you take them to your own closet and you go, okay, there's really not room for them. Am I willing to get rid of one of my pairs of shoes in order to keep the shoes that my mother wore at her wedding? And when you look at it that way, you may go, oh, I cannot stand this pair. Of course I can get rid of that. And I put this here, because I
Mhm.
give it a real space.
Yeah.
So the other thing we didn't talk about is the fifth step, which is the container concept.
Go.
Basically, the containers are not for putting things in. They're meant to serve as boundaries. They're meant to contain.
Okay.
I did not know that. I just thought organized people love containers, so they stick stuff in them, and I buy containers and my house doesn't look any better, right? Like, it didn't make any sense to
Mhm.
me what we were doing different here. And so this is the short version of things I have probably written 100,000 words on over the years, but basically the size of the space is the size of the space. The size of my closet rod is the size of my closet rod. The size of the shelf is the size of the shelf. The size of the sock drawer is the size of the sock drawer. Instead of going, is this a good thing? Do I love it? Is it important to me? I go, does it fit in the space that I have?
Mm.
And the space be functional. And that means I can keep anything. I just can't keep everything, right? So I don't have to reason through why I don't need these shoes that my mom wore in her wedding, because the whole rest of the world would tell me that there's no reason to keep that. And yet for some reason I want to keep it. Okay, give it space. But then also, if I go to give it space and I'm like, actually, I don't want to give this space, that is the thing that lets me let it go. I bought this mannequin when I was in college because there was a store going out of business and they were selling a mannequin. And who would not buy that? I bought
Yeah.
two. One of them, I don't know where it went. But the other, when I taught theater arts, I would always dress it up in costumes and stuff in the classroom. And I still have it. And it's kind of a symbol of like, I'm not here. You do not have to make arbitrary should and shouldn't have decisions, right?
Mhm.
Because when somebody gives me decluttering advice that you shouldn't have a mannequin because there's no reason to have a mannequin, I'm like, well, you don't know me and you can't tell me what to do. I want my mannequin. And so I can keep it as long as it's not taking up the space that I need for something else. Now, if it's a matter of I've got the space for either a mannequin or my pots and pans that I actually use every day, well, then I need to keep the pots and pans. And that lets me be willing to get rid of the mannequin. It's not a matter of I'm rejecting the mannequin or I'm rejecting my mother's shoes. It is literally, this is the space. I'm going to blame the space. So as you go through your parents' stuff, get rid of the stuff that you're like, oh, wait, no, no, of course not. But as you ask yourself, where would I look for this? And then give it
Mhm.
a space. Sometimes that'll make you realize, oh, actually, like my mother in law, I have several of her. I love those long handled spoons.
Mhm.
Do
Mhm.
they even have those in sets anymore? But I love those
Like a
things.
teaspoon.
Yes, I love those. They make me
Yes.
happy, but we use them. I think of her every time I stir my coffee, which is every single day. That's a positive thing. It's not a box of her kitchen stuff sitting somewhere. I have 2 of her little saucepans. I'm sure my kids even remember those saucepans being used for the things that she would cook. I replaced my own with that because that brings all the happy memories where when the stuff was in boxes, that was negative memories, right?
Right.
So like feel free to keep anything you want, but it needs to have an actual space in your home.
That's so helpful. And I just love what you said about I don't have to go up there and get it cleared out. All I have to do is go up there and make it a little better.
Yeah.
So even if I have 30 minutes to go up there and
Yeah.
sweep around and see if I can find some trash, if not, I can just look around really quick and say, well, I don't need that
Yeah.
t-shirt. I can
Yeah.
put that in the giveaway
Yeah.
bag. Thank you. That's so helpful.
But also time helps, right? And that's part of what I'm saying. Look, always look. Even if you say, for today, the thing I'm going to do is go up there and look. That is valid.
Yeah.
I'm going to go up there. I'm going to take my hanky and cry
Yeah.
if I need to as I look through things and pictures.
Yeah.
This is what I'm doing today. There is value in that for the decluttering process.
Yeah, allow myself to go up to take something for comfort, like my cup of coffee, and just be with it.
Yeah, I have videos coming out this year where I was cleaning out this dresser so my husband could put his memorabilia in there. I'm doing a video and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to clean this out. I'm going to use my process. And I get to this point where I picked up this tin of my mother-in-law's jewelry and I just went, I can't do this. I shut down. I actually have video of me shutting down and saying, I can't
Oh,
do this.
well,
Then I gave myself permission to just look through it. I was like, I'm just going to do my own strategies because that's what I have to do. And look through the things. And 2 days later, I was able to go through it. It was easy at that point
wow.
because I now knew what I was about to face. I just recently I these sessions on YouTube called 1 Hour Better, right? Because it's a progress and only progress. We can work for 1 hour and see what we can do, like to show you that
Oh,
it's worth it, even if you're not finished. But a lot of times we do finish. And I just did one in a craft room early January because a lot of people think these steps couldn't possibly apply to my craft room, right?
yeah.
So she's a craft YouTuber. And so we went through her space and got to this box and she was like, no, we can't do that box. And I was like, let's do it. And she's like, no, it'll be too hard. We can't do that in this time. No, we won't. And I was like, let's just look. Let's just look
And
in the
you're
box.
you're still doing the hour. Are
Yeah,
we on the
yeah,
hour?
within
Okay.
the hour. I was like,
Okay.
let's look in that box because it was on the floor. We were trying to clear the floor.
Yeah.
So if we didn't deal with the box, it wasn't gonna, we weren't
And
gonna be
her
able to
thing
clear the
was
floor.
like, we only have an hour left.
Yeah, she just was
Okay.
like, that is too hard. There's no way. And I said, let's just look. And I said, start with the trash. Is there any trash in there? Well, she found trash, right? And then we made it all the way through the box. And she was as shocked as anybody because it just like, and it's so fun to actually get to see her have the reaction. Like, there's no way we can't do that. And then we actually did it, right? And so they're just, I mean, I've got lots of stories. That's one that comes up. But
I feel like you just keep calling me out, Dana.
well, I'm
There's no
calling
way I could
myself
do it.
out. And I think that's probably the reason I'm able to talk so bluntly about it because I'm talking about myself. I'm not saying you should this or whatever. So many times I would get so frustrated as I felt like people would be trying to be helpful, but they didn't understand what my actual challenges were. They didn't understand that I didn't understand there was a limit to space. I don't see limits. It's a wonderful quality. But it was like the container concept is so incredibly obvious once you get it. If I wasn't sharing it on my blog, I probably would not teach that concept. Probably one of the number one concepts I teach because when I said, "Oh my goodness, I just realized this," people responded with, "What? This changes everything." People who see the world that way, which is a wonderful gift, right? But I have other gifts. When they see the world that way, they don't know that other people don't see the world that way. So coming at it from my angle of, yeah, I get what the challenges are because they're my challenges too. I'm not calling you out, I promise.
But how do you
No,
get
I'm happy to be called out.
how do you get people to accept the fact that when the container is full, the little bin or a room or your house,
Mhm.
that you stop. That's when you get rid of stuff and not go rent storage space or
Yeah.
buy more containers or what.
Well, the short version is my friend has her crayons in a red bucket. I'm like, why is my craft area a ridiculously crazy mess and hers is perfect? It must be that she has a red bucket. So I would get a red bucket, I would put crayons in it, and then I would have 700 crayons left over. And I was like, oh my word. And so I bought 2 more red buckets, right? Like that was what I thought I needed to do. And so
Mm,
then I would go to put the red buckets on the shelf and they wouldn't all fit. And then eventually I didn't have room for more shelves and I thought I need a new house. I'm doomed to be disorganized forever. But when I realized that the red bucket is the limit,
mm.
then I put my favorite things in first. And when it's full, something happens in my brain that makes me go, oh, I guess I don't need 1,000 crayons. Assess each crayon for value because a broken crayon still colors, right? And so if I'm looking at every crayon and saying, might I ever use it? Well, of course I might use it. I might melt it down and make Valentine's things. You make my
Yeah.
world colorful. So I just go through that whole process. Now, I don't recommend that you sit them down and try to explain the container concept. Instead, I was clearing out that chest of drawers for my husband to put his memorabilia in. We moved, it's been 3 years now, but some of his stuff is still in boxes. So I'm like, let's clear this space so that he can have a place for it. And that's, with kids, with other people in your house to say, hey, here's a space for these things that are important to you. Put your favorites in there first, and whatever doesn't fit, we'll need to get rid of. It's amazing how well that works because you're actually honoring the fact that this stuff is important to them, as
Mhm.
opposed to coming at it from, you need to get rid of some of your stuff. Why do you have all this stuff from the 1980s or whatever? That's not actually helpful.
Brilliant.
Part of why we're so drawn to this topic, besides needing this advice
Mhm,
ourselves, I think for the good dirt and this podcast being about slow living and
mhm,
sustainability, I just don't think it can be like emphasized enough how much this has to do with slow living and
mhm,
sustainability and how much our relationship with stuff and consumerism, it's all wrapped up in us and our spaces and our relationship to our space and our stuff, and we're probably all so guilty of it, but I can't throw away this plastic bag. I can use it for
mhm.
something. And then it just crushes you. So I guess with that in mind, I'm curious about your experience being a slob who has come clean.
Mhm,
What has your relationship to sustainability been throughout this process? If you're familiar with the term slow living, what does
mhm.
slow living mean to you?
Yeah, I would say slow living. It makes me think about, when you take the container concept all the way out, my house is a container, right? So the most important things deserve space first. And the most important things in my house are the people who live in it, right? Like, so I and my family need space to live. I didn't know how much I would appreciate and come to love and value empty space.
Mhm.
Like, cooking from scratch is very important to me. It was so much harder when I had more pots and pans and more dishes because it was easier to let them get out of control. And therefore, I would feel so much guilt over not doing this thing that was really important to me.
Mhm.
Like, it was very important to me to cook from scratch. By getting rid of so many dishes, it forces me to do the dishes sooner. And it's not a force like a antagonistic force, but it's just a natural thing that it triggers in my brain. Oh, I've got to do the dishes, right? Because we don't have enough to go days anymore
Also,
like we
it's
used.
so crazy? I just had a light bulb ding, ding,
Yeah.
ding. It's so funny what you're saying because I think we're programmed to think, ugh,
Yep.
I really need to cook from scratch more. If I buy this
Yep.
thingy, so we have that guilt of
Yes.
doing the thing. And then
Absolutely.
our first impulse is to collect the
Yeah.
things that will help us do that.
When I decluttered my dishes and also made the daily practice of getting my dishes done, we stopped needing paper plates.
Mhm.
Right? But before, when I had so many dishes and I was always behind because I was putting them off because I just didn't have the time or whatever, which was a complete misconception of how much time it took to do one day's worth of dishes because I always waited. I just realized, oh, I haven't even thought about buying paper plates, right? But before, I always had paper plates on hand because we were always running out of dishes because so it was just this vicious cycle. Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit about the sustainability, but it's that if I'm doing the dishes every single day, then I have room to wash everybody's reusable cup or water bottle, whatever. So before I was like, oh, I don't have room for all these things, but it was because I had been waiting, right? And
Mm.
so when I can actually do that every single day, it just frees up my bandwidth to handle those things.
Yeah, and you don't have big piles of
Mhm.
dirty dishes that need to be done,
Yep. Yeah.
which that's an emotional burden.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and we all know there's nothing like a clean kitchen. It just feels spacious and
Mhm.
and have potential. I love, walking into the kitchen in the morning. If the kitchen's been clean the night before, it's like a new day. The kitchen's clean, and I'm like, what do I want to make? It
Mhm.
feels so
Yeah.
much better.
Yeah.
So, what does slow living mean to you?
Um, It's not something I think about all the time, right? But intentional living is something I do think about all the time. It could be very similar concepts. It's non negotiable
Mhm.
that we're going to have dinner together. It's non negotiable. Now, I've had teenagers. It's not always possible, right? But anybody who's home, it's really important to me that we're going to eat together. I think that the slow living and the intentional living, just having so much less stuff, like I always say, start in your living areas because it makes living easier. I want my family to be able to plop down on the couch and relax. It used to be that the couch was covered in stuff,
Mm.
probably the in between stuff from some decluttering project that I started 3 weeks ago, and it's all been spread out on the couch or clean laundry piled or whatever. So, those types of things, they're like kinks in the actual slow living or intentional living that I want to be doing. So, when I get those things out of here, it makes all of that easier.
That's a great example.
Yeah.
To be able to, like, live in your living room.
Yes.
And I think that's the intentional living can be.
Yeah.
Absolutely, and, that comes up so often in our discussions.
Yeah.
So, we also like to ask our guests, the name of the podcast is The Good Dirt, but the good
Mhm.
dirt can have many meanings besides just the name of the podcast. What does that phrase mean to you, if anything? What can you say about the good dirt?
Well, we moved into this house. It's been a little over 3 years now, and we have 13 acres,
Mm.
and I have a really big garden that's way more than I can handle. Every year I try really hard, and every year so far I've failed miserably, but it's so much fun. I love having my hands in the actual dirt. And I will say the actual biggest benefit has been an asparagus patch, a 20-year asparagus patch. I don't have to do anything, but I need to know what to do so I don't lose this asparagus patch. We've had our freezes, and so I need to get out there and cut it down and all that. The asparagus patch is like all my podcast listeners know. I love asparagus. It's so much fun to go out there and be like, I was out here this morning and now I'm out here 5 hours later, and this thing has grown in that time. It's just bananas. I love it. It's so much fun. Yeah.
I'm jealous. I know an asparagus patch takes a while. I don't have one, and I've been here 12 years, but
Yeah.
that's inspirational. I should.
Well, I have done nothing. I'm worried about ruining it. That's my big fear is that I'm gonna ruin this one that had already been going for 20 years. So
What a thing to
I
inherit.
I
know. Oh
know,
my goodness.
an
I love
asparagus
it.
patch in the spring. You're eating your own asparagus. Are you kidding me? That's
It's the
awesome.
best.
It's so funny how asparagus just comes out of the ground.
It's
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 surprising.
wild. Like
Oh,
it's the coolest. Like it makes me feel like a toddler. I get so
Yeah.
excited about it. And you just snap it off. Oh,
Yeah.
it's the best. I love it. Yeah.
As we wrap up here, is there anything that you'd like to leave the audience with? Like, what do you most want people to understand about the work that you do?
As far as the work that I do, I don't want you to feel any guilt or pressure. Just know that there are strategies that will relieve the pressure that you're already feeling. I'm all about the actual down and dirty strategies. What can I actually do right now today that will make an actual impact on my space?
Awesome. This has been a really great conversation and really helpful and informative and inspirational.
So helpful. Oh, I have one more question for the
Yeah.
group. Dana, I probably know your answer, but I think it'd be interesting if my mom and I shared. Mom, do you think you're at your clutter threshold in your life?
Yeah, I'm over it. I'm past it. But
Okay.
here's something, Dana. I feel like my clutter threshold is shrinking.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It definitely changes with different phases of life.
Yeah. I'm way less tolerant now. So I feel like I'm always fighting it and it's a never-ending job. But especially after this conversation, I feel like, there's going to be a point, employ your techniques and adopt that frame of mind. I'm going to make this better instead of I'm going to tackle this today, and not just my barn, everything, every little spot, drawer, cupboard, whatever. There will be that point where I go, I can manage this. There are areas in the house that I look at and go, that's manageable, that's pleasing. I talk a lot about the feelings of a place, of a spot. You look at something and you can feel it in your body. You can feel like, oh, I like the way that looks, or like, that's a job undone. In answer to your question, Emma, I am beyond my clutter threshold in many areas, but I think I'm headed in the right direction. And it's not one of my takeaways from this conversation is really helpful is that maybe it's not a never-ending task.
I mean, it's never ending in that you're always going to be having new stuff come in because that's life,
Yeah.
right? And so there's always going to need to be stuff going out. But
There is a ground zero.
yeah, getting down to the reality of your space is your ground zero. At that point, it's just maintenance. As new stuff comes in, old stuff has to go out.
Yeah. Okay. See, I kind of have a new perspective on all this. Thank you, Dana. What about you, Emma?
Well, thank you for asking. I think thanks to your help, Mom, recently. I just had a baby last summer, Dana. So I did a lot of work. The house was really stressing me out. So I did a lot of work there. I think I have gotten to my clutter threshold even, Mom, like in the basement. There's a couple spots where it really is like got all the stuff out, or, stuff really has a place. And maybe even the living room, even though there's a lot of stuff, especially now, like there's lots of baby toys and stuff, there's places to put everything and it's very quick to be straightened. But at the same time, there's other rooms where that's not the case. So it does feel like one thing at a time. And that I would agree after this conversation, I feel less bad about that because I don't know. It's easy to be like, oh, my house is still cluttered. I don't know.
Yeah, and ironically, I go over to Emma's house sometimes and we'll take on a project in her house. It's easier for me to help her with her house.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Anyway, this has been really helpful and great. Tell us how.
Oh, yeah. How can people find you?
And can they go on your website and get this 5-step process, or in your books? You've written books. You have a podcast. Tell us.
Yeah. So the 5-step process, I go really in depth in Decluttering at the Speed of Life. That's probably my best known book. And then you can go to aslobcomesclean.com/5, FIVE, and you can sign up for my newsletter and get a copy of the 5-step process. So yeah, you can find all the stuff. I have a new book coming out, like all of my stuff is there at aslobcomesclean.com. You can also just search Dana K. White. As long as you put the K in there, you'll find me. So.
And your podcast is?
A Slob Comes Clean. Yeah.
Slob Comes Clean.
Nice.
Come out every
Thursday.
Right.
Thank you for tuning in, calling in, and spreading the good dirt. We love hearing from you. You can reach our listener voicemail at 443-459-1950. That's 443-459-1950. You can find this number in our show notes and in our Instagram profile.
This show is produced by Lady Farmer, a slow living lifestyle community, and the original music is composed and performed by John Kingsley.
For more from Lady Farmer, follow us on Instagram at WeAreLadyFarmer. That's We Are Lady Farmer. Or join us online at www.ladyfarmer.com. We'll see you next time on The Good Dirt.
Goodbye.